For $40 at a Savannah estate sale, Martin Greer bought a secretary desk. The bottom drawer was 4 inches too shallow. He pressed a carved acanthus leaf. Something gave way. Inside, a sealed bag containing a driver's license, a locket with human hair, and a faint chemical smell. He called homicide. The name on that license belonged to a woman missing since 1989. Carol Ann Mabry was not the only one. Martin Greer's receipt from the Savannah estate sale was dated June 21st, 2025. $40 exchanged for a secretary desk that, to most eyes, blended into the faded grandeur of a neighborhood lined with live oaks and ironwork. The auction room that morning was crowded. There were boxes of books, cut glass, and a battered trunk. Greer, a retired teacher, had bought dozens of pieces over the years. He knew the ritual. Inspect the feet for rot. Check the drawers for sticking. Look for a maker's stamp. Yet this desk, with its worn mahogany and elaborate acanthus leaf carving, drew him for reasons he could not name. The desk's form traced its lineage back nearly 3 centuries. In 1754, Thomas Chippendale's pattern book, The Gentleman's and Cabinet Maker's Director, set a new standard for English and American furniture. Chippendale's designs did not just showcase ornament, they introduced a vocabulary of secrecy. Pattern plates illustrated hidden drawers, spring-loaded panels, and false bottoms, some so well disguised that even experienced collectors overlooked them. Cabinet makers in the South, eager to serve lawyers and merchants with valuables to hide, copied these features. By the 1820s, a high-end secretary could contain 10 or more concealed spaces, sliding columns, pivoting valances, and shallow cavities masked by decorative trim. The mechanisms were often triggered by pressing a carved detail, a leaf, a rib, a knob, blending function into ornament. Savannah's antique trade thrived on such pieces. Local auctioneers described desks with as many as 15 secret compartments, their locations mapped only in fading workshop ledgers or passed down through family lore. For buyers like Greer, the search for hidden spaces was part of the appeal, a harmless puzzle. Most finds amounted to nothing: a lost letter, a coin, the brittle stub of a cigar. But the desk he carried home that afternoon was different. The bottom drawer, meant to be deep enough for ledgers or legal folios, measured 4 inches too shallow. The left-hand acanthus column felt heavier, its surface slightly loose. In Chippendale's era, such clues signaled a craftsman's sleight of hand, a promise that something more lay beneath the surface. In ordinary circumstances, the discovery of a hidden compartment might have ended with a smile and a story for friends. But this desk, shaped by centuries-old motives for secrecy, was about to reveal evidence that had waited decades in the dark. The line between collector's curiosity and criminal evidence was about to vanish, leaving only the facts, a concealed space, a set of modern objects, and a name that Savannah had not spoken aloud in 35 years. The bottom drawer, meant for ledgers and folios, stopped short, 4 inches shy of the desk's outer frame. Greer measured twice, then slid his hand along the left acanthus column. The surface shifted beneath his fingers. A faint click, almost lost in the hush of the room, released the mechanism. The false bottom, disguised by a century of polish and dust, lifted with a resistance that suggested it had not moved in decades. Inside the cavity, darkness pooled around a single sealed plastic bag. The air changed. An acrid chemical odor leached out, sharp and artificial, nothing like old wood or varnish. Greer recoiled, then steadied himself. The bag was modern, its plastic seam heat-welded shut. Through the clouded surface, he made out a cluster of objects. A Georgia driver's license issued in 1987, its laminate warped. A gold locket wound with a single strand of hair, a tarnished ring, and a folded stack of handwritten notes. The ink bled at the edges. The license bore a woman's name. The photograph faded, but unmistakably recent compared to the age of the desk. The odor grew stronger, seeping into the air and clinging to Greer's hands. He noted the time, 2:17 in the morning, and reached for his phone. The 911 dispatcher's log would later record his words. He told the operator that he had found something, it smelled wrong, there was a bag in the desk, and he thought they needed to send someone. The desk, once a collector's prize, was now a sealed crime scene. Greer stepped back, careful not to disturb the compartment further. The objects inside, the license, the locket, the ring, waited in silence, their meaning suspended between past and present. Forensics would soon take over. But in that moment, the boundary between history and evidence had collapsed, leaving only the residue of secrets carried forward by wood, metal, and plastic. The ordinary ritual of estate sale discovery had become something else entirely. The sealed evidence bag, once lifted from the desk's hidden cavity, entered a chain of custody that would stretch from a Savannah patrol car to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation Forensic Lab. Technicians began with the surface. A faint blue glow appeared across the false bottom when luminol was sprayed, indicating the presence of blood remnants invisible to the naked eye. Every object inside, license, locket, ring, and notes, was logged, photographed, and assigned a unique accession code. The locket, wound tightly with a single strand of hair, underwent careful extraction in a sterile hood. Forensic analysts followed a protocol. The hair was isolated, root and shaft separated, and DNA extracted using a silica column method designed for degraded samples. Within weeks, the laboratory produced a short tandem repeat profile. The comparison sample, a buccal swab from Elaine Mabry, Carol Ann's sister, arrived under separate seal, accompanied by a notarized consent form and the original missing person file, MP 890123, dated December 14, 1989. The match was conclusive. The analyst's report, signed and time-stamped, listed a probability of relatedness exceeding 99.999%. The desk's contents, once anonymous, now bore a match. A memo from the Homicide Division followed. As of August 12, 2025, the disappearance of Carol Ann Mabry was no longer classified as a missing person case. The file was reopened as an active homicide investigation. The desk, labeled Evidence 2025-04-DR19, became the nexus of a renewed search. Its surfaces were swabbed, its mechanism diagrammed, its dimensions measured against historical pattern books. The ordinary rituals of estate sale collecting gave way to the methodical logic of forensic science. And with each laboratory result, the boundaries of what the desk concealed began to dissolve, and the weight of evidence settled into a formal investigation. Records from Savannah Self-Storage, Unit B12, reveal a pattern that extends far beyond a single desk. The inventory, signed and dated July 2025, lists 3 more antiques, a walnut escritoire, a carved armoire, and a Victorian chest, all modified with hidden compartments. Each piece, traced through moving company logs, had passed through Harold Prewitt's hands during his tenure as a foreman at Savannah Movers Incorporated from 1978 to 1990. Prewitt's employment history shows routine access to estate properties and the authority to transport or store large furniture, a privilege that allowed him to move objects unseen and unchallenged. Inside the storage unit, police found personal effects linked not only to Carol Ann Mabry, but to two other women missing from Chatham County between 1984 and 1994. A diary inscribed with the name Donna Kelly, last seen in 1990, and a gold pendant marked J-2000, tied to Jenna Larson, missing since 1992, were each sealed in plastic and hidden beneath false panels. Forensic evidence from these items, hair, fibers, and blood traces, prompted the Homicide Division to reclassify all three cases as murders. The evidence log notes that the desk and its contents were retained as Exhibit 2025-04-DR-19, then destroyed under Georgia Department of Law Enforcement policy after 18 months, a procedural limit that closed the door on further physical analysis. Harold Prewitt died in May 2025, weeks before the estate sale that released these objects into the open. No charges were ever filed. Under Georgia law, estate sale sellers are not required to disclose a deceased owner's criminal history, a gap codified in OCGA, Section 51-1-1. The statute shields sellers from liability unless they knowingly conceal a defect that directly affects value. For Martin Greer, the absence of warning meant carrying home a piece of evidence that would haunt him long after the police left. Elaine Mabry, Carol Ann's sister, spoke to reporters after the DNA match. "We always knew she did not just leave." For 35 years, the silence of the missing was matched only by the silence of the law. The ordinary chain of possession, auctioneer, buyer, storage clerk, became the final barrier to justice, leaving families with answers that arrived too late, and a system that insists no warning was ever owed. Today, 3 missing persons cases stand reclassified as homicides because one false bottom finally gave up its secrets. The law still offers no guarantee that the next piece of furniture won't conceal another silent witness. Some answers surface far too late. The rest remain hidden in plain sight.